Welcome back to the Sam JW channel. It was always going to happen eventually, wasn't it? Oxford United's unbeaten home record at Grenoble Road is gone after losing 2-1 convincingly to Swansea City. Let's talk about it. So yeah, Oxford United's home unbeaten run is over, and quite frankly it couldn't have happened in one of the worst performances, I've seen in a long time for an Oxford side. This is probably going to be a bit of one of the shorter videos because there's not an awful lot to go over in this game in regard to Oxford.
Are you sure about that?
It was a borrowed performance for the majority of that game, and look, it's not something we need to hark on hopefully for too long. The players will know it. Des certainly knows it. He said it after the game that it was not good enough. Luckily we've got a game on Tuesday night and a game on the Friday night to be able to try and bounce back and get back on a on winning form. We're now 8 games without a win, which obviously for those 5 draws in a row would look like, okay, it's looking pretty decent. Draws against some decent sides. And not saying Swansea aren't a decent side, but we're starting to drop down the league quite substantially. We're now just 2 points above the relegation zone. And yeah, it's all changed pretty quickly. I think us and Derby these last couple of games have been a bit of a reality check and gone, we started really well and it's kind of all started to fall apart. But yeah, we'll get onto this in a minute. Like I say, it's horrific. Obviously there's a couple of changes to the lineup. To the loss to Sunderland, Jamie Cumming kept his place in goal. Peter Kiyosha and Kieran Brown also keeping their places as the fullbacks. Ben Nelson, Elliot Moore as centre halves. Josh McEachran rightfully replacing Will Vaulks in the 6. Des deciding to go with a double 10, it appeared, with Louis Sibley and Ruben Rodriguez. I thought it was very interesting that he didn't go with 110 and 18. I think maybe going forward that's a system, as it was affectionately coined, the reverse mullet is probably going to have to be assigned to cup games, because double 10s, it didn't appear to work. I think they were both getting each other's way and it didn't really work. Goodrum started out on the left hand side, Owen Dale making his first start of the campaign, with Mark Harris returning up top. I understand the selection of Mark Harris. Obviously he's a lad that hates Swansea as much as we hate Swindon, but maybe we'll talk about it in a little bit. Maybe the match just wasn't right for Mark Harris. Speaking of the scum, former Swindon goalkeeper Lawrence Vigouroux was in the net, and yeah, suffice to say he got a well-deserved hostile reception. Once a scum, always a scum, and if you come to Grenoble Road you will always get a battering. Obviously there are the odd exception, Billy Bowden is, we love the lad. Obviously, Miles Harris is a lad we know from, I think it was a loan at Portsmouth last campaign, wasn't it? But it's that side is very much, I'd say, a mid-table championship squad. And Luke Williams, obviously highly rated when he was at Notts County, obviously managed Ruben Rodriguez, and there was links, of course, before Des came in that we were going to get Luke Williams. Of course we didn't. We ended up getting Des Buckingham. I think suffice to say, I think Luke Williams played this game perfectly. Let's just dive into it, shall we? Look, this was an absolute pasting. This was a battering on par with the Sunderland performance. I mean, it took until I think the 38th minute before we had our first shot. Swansea on top. A lot of, and it's a cliche in football, but it's one that is kind of trotted out for a reason. The amount of warning signs that Swansea offered us we just didn't take. There was one chance where I believe it's this one right on the from Darling, or was it Pert Harris, who just blazed it over the bar. There's one from range, which was saved, and a couple more chances where they're really decent opportunities, and it's this one I think from Franco where he hits the top of the crossbar. We just didn't take the warning, and it's the goal comes from basically no one doing their let's try and find it here on the edge of the area, no one doing the fullest of their jobs. Ball's played forward, I think it's by Jamie Cumming, and Tyler Goodrum can't get to it. He then kind of gives 75% to the track, lets his man go, who then drifts into the midfield area. Louis Sibley doesn't pick him up. Kieran Brown slides and tries to make an interception, just comes off the toe, but goes out to a wide man who fizzes it across the ball for Vipnik to slot home from really close range. And like I say, it was a deserved lead for Swansea. They were far the better side, and it was not a performance that at that point inspired any kind of confidence from an Oxford point of view. We did create a few kind of okay chances. This one from Goodrum where he gets forward and has an okay shot, but it's it's right down Vigoro's throat. He's got there's no way he's gonna be beaten from that. And then this one from Ruben Rodriguez where he hits the crossbar from a header from a corner kick was that was the best chance we had going to the second half. And yeah, there was so much to be done for Des and the boys. I'm just trying to remember, I don't believe there was any half-time changes made. There was. Idris El Mazouni replaced that of Louis Sibley. Louis Sibley, this was not one of his better performances in an Oxford shirt. Lost his man a fair number of times and just didn't, like I say, I think being in that 10 wasn't helpful to him. It wasn't helpful to Ruben. I don't think the double 10 quite works when, and it's a really simple thing, but I think when you've got, look at last season when you had Goodrum and Rodriguez as the double 10s, because they're both right-footed, Tyler's natural movement playing as the 10 on the left-hand side would be to sweep it out towards that wide area and look to play the pass. Ruben could bring it more central because he'd bring the touch in, then he'd turn and look to play it forward to Harris or, this season, Goodwin or Scarlett. With Louis Sibley, both their in-touches bring them central, and that means they're getting in each other's way. Their movement wasn't quite up to snuff, really. And again, we'll get onto this. I think Ruben was, the hardest working player on the pitch in the final third in the midfield area, really. And it just was a overall piss poor performance, I think. Second half was better, but the only way was up from that first half performance. We started okay, had a decent amount of the ball for I think literally 2 minutes. Then Swansea get ball, come up the other end, start really piling on the pressure, looking for that second goal. We just seemed to give it back to them every time. There was a kind of short, I think, period after an hour, I think, where we got one or two chances. Again, we'll talk about the substitutions, but you can see the majority of these chances do come kind of, around that point. But one or two opportunities, we've got to talk about this one, which is 5 minutes after the restart. El Mazouni's first real impact on the game really good bit of play between himself and Kieran Brown. Sends El Mazzuni down the left-hand side of the area, fizzes it across the box, and it's a chance very similar to one that Harris missed against Bristol City. Sliding in, which I understand, I think, more so than some of our fan base, into why it was made a more difficult chance, because he's sliding in, the angle of his foot cannons it over the bar, but it was another big chance that Sparky's missed this season, and like I say, I don't think his work rate was quite as high as it usually is. Obviously, this is piss poor. Just general piss poorness. Nice bit of play down the right hand side between Peter Kioso and Malcolm Abui, who tries, I love the idea, tries a left footed swinger to try and find Tyler Goodrum. Goodrum doesn't make enough of an effort to win the ball, loses the aerial duel, and then they play through us, and then Biancini scores at a pretty decent angle. Not much Jamie Cumming could do, really. Obviously, from that point we looked to improve again. Obviously, the goal coming from Dane Scarlett, but more pressure being piled on, as I showed you a lot of these chances here, you know, after the goal goes in. There's another one in there, which is a pretty decent effort. Just, you know, getting good areas in which we're all standing there thinking, why couldn't you have got there 15 minutes ago, boys? And really good play again from Kieran Brown on the left hand side, before he was actually moved into a more centre half area. It's a good bit of play by Kieran Brown. He plays the ball through. Dane Scarlett, good turn, nicely placed strike past Lawrence Viggo. Thankfully, the scum keeper doesn't keep his clean sheet. And as always happens at Grenoble Road, when we get a late goal, there's that drive to get the second to be the equaliser in this. And it's an amazing opportunity comes. Will Volks' long throw, cannons into the area, flicked on, I believe it's by Ben Nelson on this occasion, but it was both he and Elliot Moore on the right hand side of the 6-yard box. Heads it on, Gregley narrowly heads wide, and you know, Swansea, look, I wasn't thrilled with some of their methods. There were, you know, some really soft fouls being given away. You know, anytime an Oxford player got near them in their half, kind of, they go down like a sack of spuds. Sometimes one of the mildest of touch, but the ref bought it every time. Same time, some really stupid fouls being given away by Oxford players, especially at that point in a game where you know the Swansea man's are going to go down really easily. They're just kind of leaning into them a bit too much. Tyler Goodrum on one occasion leaned a little bit too much into his man, and you know, even though Tyler's like 5'8", defender goes down like he's just been, you know, steamrolled by a 4x4. But we can't have any complaints. This was, like I said earlier, a piss poor performance by Oxford United. And like I say, the only glimpse of hope is the fact that we've got another 2 games this week to hopefully get another 3 points. It'll be only our 4th 3 points of the season. Of the lineups, look, Jamie Cumming can only do so much. He made a couple of decent saves, but you know, when it all breaks down, he's the one that concedes goals. I don't think there's too much he can do about either of them, and he makes some decent saves. Pitioso was decent. There was a couple of occasions in that second half where he was caught far too high up the pitch. Maybe for Hull and Watford we switched to a back five. I don't know. It's certainly an option worth exploring, I think, just given that we can't. Kiyosha was getting caught so far up the field, it's giving so much space for Pert Harris, for Timon, for Franco to get down our right hand side. Elliot Moore and Ben Nelson, again, stable performance, I think, from those two. Again, Elliot Moore dragging us out of so many situations that we caused ourselves problems. It's just a shame that he's having to do that so often. Ben Nelson, this was his weakest performance in Oxfordshire. He didn't do too much wrong. Other than the thing, this is something I've gotten Kieran Brown at for ages. Taking the ball too far forward when he's kind of striding with purpose into the midfield third. Should have, one extra pass, but not an awful lot done wrong by Ben Nelson, I don't think. Kieran Brown, Kieran again makes some big blocks. He gets the assist, some good play down the left hand side in that second half. Just struggle, I think, again, is the case so often with Kieran Brown against pacey wingers. Josh McEachran, so obviously myself, along with pretty much every single other Oxford United fan, was calling for Josh McEachran to get a start over Will Vaulks. But there is one thing we forgot. He's obviously only just come back from a slight knock that he's had, and Josh McEachran cannot play a full 90 minutes. He can only play, maximum 75 before he gets proper leggy, which is a real pain in the arse. The rest of his game, I thought he looked really good. That's the one thing that Josh has got over Will Vaulks. His ability on the ball, he's superior to, I'd say, a vast majority of this Oxford side with the ball at his feet. Josh McEachran is superb. There was an incident in the midfield area. I think it might have been Joe Allen and Grimes that were kind of pressing him, and he kind of backed into them, kept the ball right, on his centre of gravity, just pirouetting, and managed to get away with it. Several big interceptions made by Josh McEachran and big dispossessions. The lad's incredible. Like I say, the only problem is that he can't play a full 90 minutes at this moment. And like I say, Ruben and Louis Sibley, that double 10 didn't work. Like I said, Louis Sibley, this is probably his worst Oxford performance. Look, I'm not going to hark on it too much. This was a rare start for Louis Sibley. And it's, used as a platform to kind of bounce off and improve. But I do think we look better with Idris El Mazouni on the pitch. Ruben Rodriguez, like I say, I think he was our hardest working attacking player. Pressing Vigouroux, pressing the defenders, really working his arse off, and I'm now really stuck as to who starts as the 10 in this side, because Louis Sibley gets this start, doesn't play particularly well. Ruben, who I've been calling for to maybe get dropped because I don't think he's been quite up to snuff recently, has a really good game. It's a really annoying one. Tyler Goodrum didn't do an awful lot. I come back so often to Tyler's main issue is that he's not quick enough really to play in the wide areas at this level. There was a couple of times obviously he was moved into the 10 when Malcolm Abui came on, and he just looked brilliant. He looked so much better. Maybe what we do is when we've now got a couple more wingers more fit, hopefully, play Tyler in the 10. The effort he has from range is proof of what he can do when he's in that midfield area, the driving forward. Maybe that's what we have to do. Owen Dale worked his socks off, but just a slight lack of end product still from Owen Dale. Again, I'm not going to hark on him too much because this was his first start of the campaign, and it's going to take a bit of time for him to kind of get up to speed with the Championship. And then Mark Harris, this was, like I say, his worst performance of the campaign. I think maybe the opponent, he was too often playing on his mind. The fact it's Swansea City, I think there was a couple of chances towards him from the Swansea faithful, and maybe that played on his mind. He wasn't working as hard as I'd like him to, as hard as he has shown he can work. And yeah, I think Dane Scarlett has to start on Saturday. Of the subs, we mentioned Idris El Mazouni. Overall was okay. Obviously that fantastic ball across the area for the chance that Harris misses wasn't amazing for the rest of the game. I have to be honest, to get bypassed a couple of times in the midfield area. Triple substitution, we had Will Vaulks, Malcolm Abue and Dane Scarlett. So Will Vaulks. Obviously, like I said, the necessity of him coming on is that Josh McEachran can't play a full 90. He did get bypassed for Swansea's second goal. He looked okay. I think the having to start on the bench did light a bit of a fire under him, but I think if necessary, or if we can, I should say, again, start McEachran on the if we're sticking with this staggered 3 in midfield. I mean, I would very much be an advocate potentially for a Josh McEachran, Will Vaulks double pivot, because what that would give you is what Vaulks lacks, in the sense of bringing the ball forward, giving him someone who's more confident in playing the passes that he had in Barry Bannon at Sheffield Wednesday last campaign, and that he had at the start of the season with Cameron Brannigan. Maybe a double 6 is the way to go, and then play an Idris El Mazouni or a Ruben Rodriguez or a Tyler Goodrum in a 10/ more advanced 8 role. Malcolm Abue, there was a hell of a lot of stick going towards him from the area of the ground I was sat in. A lot of shouts at the end of send him back and all that kind of thing. This is a lad, we need to remember, he hasn't started a league game for Oxford. He's had this is, I think, the longest amount of time he's had in the league for Oxford since coming on loan. Obviously, the pass that he tries to make to Goodrum that then gives away the ball leading to the goal, the second goal for Swansea. Look, you can criticise all you want for that switch of play, but the reality is, when that comes off, the lad gets praised. Players get praised for that switch of play, for finding their man. You don't get to live in a world where you can criticise him when when the man it's going towards doesn't quite isn't quite on his toes and doesn't quite react lively enough to get to the ball, and then when he completes that pass and it's switched out to the wing, give him a big clap. You have to accept that there is a risk to that pass being played. When it comes off, it creates a great opportunity. When it doesn't, you know, there's so many more players in front of the Swansea man after the ball is intercepted from a Buey switch of play. There are so many men in front of the Swansea player that don't stop him from putting the ball in the back of the net. Look, you know me, I'm very willing to be patient with these players. I'm willing to be patient on Malcolm Abia because I've seen a lot from him in his very limited appearances that makes me very excited about the player that we've got. That being said, the one thing I will criticise Malcolm Abia on is as soon as he came on, there was a little bit of a reluctance to track back, a little bit of lack of energy. He did cover for Peter Kioso when Peter Kioso was caught out in the Swansea half. He got back, he made the challenge, allowed us to find our shape again. Like I say, I think Malcolm Abui, there's a lot to come from this lad, and I have faith that he will be able to bring it out with more regular minutes. Greg Lee, yeah, I mean, this is obviously the sign that we're lacking wingers at the minute. Came on and look, you know, he was decent. You know, Greg will always put in a shift for this side, and no matter what, Greg will, you know, he'll always go for those aerial duels, and obviously his flick on ever so slightly misses Lawrence Vigouroux's goal, and you know, it would have been another, iconic Greg Lee moment, and you know, it's just a shame that we seem to be having too often to try and, you know, make up late in second halves at Grenoble Road. Obviously, goal scorer Dane Scarlett, he has to start again. You know, 3 goals in 4 games. I think it's 5 goals and assists, or sort of 5 goal and assist contributions in the games that he's played so far for us. He has to start. He gives us a bit of more of a different kind of dynamic. I think his work rates, you know, improved massively. And you know, obviously the game against Sunderland was a tricky one because he was in the graveyard shift. He worked his socks off, did Dane Scarlett, and like I say, start him up top against Hull, because I think you know, we have to, you know, reward performances like we're seeing from Dane Scarlett with regular minutes. Like I said, obviously in the table we've dropped down to 19th, 2 points above the relegation zone, now with a -1 goal difference. Obviously there is 33 games to go, so I'm not going to make any massive cataclysmic warnings about the situation we find ourselves in. And what I will say though is that we need to start getting 3 points quickly. Like I said, we are winless in 8. We play a side that, like ourselves on Tuesday night, will be in the bottom half with us. They are a point ahead, and from what I saw from Portsmouth fans on Saturday, they were confused, you know, that they didn't come away with 3 points in that game, because, you know, they had the chances, but hopefully we can get back to winning ways. Like I said, the unbeaten run at Grenoble Road is gone for this season. It was always going to happen. Obviously, a couple of videos ago, I was saying hypothetically, you know, what if this goes on till February? It was never going to happen. And it's very oxygenated that it comes against a side that hadn't scored in, I think it was 6 games. They hadn't scored in the entirety of October. And they come to Grenoble Road and score twice. That is one of, if not the most oxygenated things I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, I mean, the fact that, you know, it a little bit of a kind of annoyance that, like I say, we're on such a high and we've come to do 2 of these convincing losses in back-to-back games. Like I say, we've got 2 massive chances this week to make up for it. Hopefully we can get back to winning ways. Hopefully we can get some much needed momentum, some much needed confidence back in this Oxford side. But let me know your thoughts on the convincing loss to Swansea in the comments down below, and I'll see you for a review of the Hull City game. See you later.